Okay, well, it is 4 o'clock. Welcome everybody to our open forum on the state of economic development going into 2021. We are so excited to have you join us today, and I'm equally excited that we have Amy Madison from Pflugerville, Charisse Bodisch from the Austin Chamber, and Ben White from the City of Cedar Park here to answer all of the questions and sound super smart. And if anything is based on our prior discussions about this event, there's probably going to be a lot of laughter going on as well. So we're going to kick this off. I'm going to because I think if you've attended an ATC event in the past, you know that nothing is more painful to me than reading off people's LinkedIn profiles at them. So we're going to start with Amy. We're going to let her introduce herself, but we're going to have an extra little thing where each of them have to tell us the biggest deal that they've closed so far in 2020. So Amy?
So my name is Amy Madison, Executive Director for the Pflugerville Community Development Corporation. We're what's called a Type B city in the city. In the state of Texas, we retain a 0.5-cent sales tax for purposes of economic development. And I run the PCDC. We're outside of the city, but we directly report to the city council. They appoint our board, approve our budget, et cetera, et cetera. So we are very, very tied at the hip. It's been a really interesting development out in Pflugerville for many years. When SH 130 went through, it was the biggest thing that ever happened in the city. And it has absolutely transformed us since 2006, 2007. That said, that short growth spurt that we've had has brought on a lot of interest, and we've brought a lot of projects. But in 2020, we had the Amazon deal, which was huge for us. It was huge for the region and even for the state. This is the largest facility going up in the state of Texas right now, 3.8 million square feet for Amazon, and will bring 250 million plus in investment in the community. And it will bring another additional 1,000 jobs plus at a minimum wage of $15 an hour. What that impact has had for our community has been significant, because not only does it bring jobs and the investment, but the property they're sitting on originally was in our ETJ, so it had never been annexed, not a dime coming into the city from that. And now through just property tax alone, they'll see 1.5 million annually on this project. But beyond that, we had a lot of sales tax that came off this project during the pandemic and helped to sustain what has now been a year over year 18% increase in our sales tax citywide. So it has a lot of benefit. It's an exciting project. I like to say that I can go anywhere in town and it follows me, because I can see it from anywhere. 4.5 stories high, and it's truly remarkable facility, and it's going to be filled with drones and people very soon. Hoping to open the doors in August of 2021.
Good, congratulations.
Thank you.
Ben, we're going to move over to you. I'm going to switch it up a little bit. And Ben White, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, thank you. And it's an honor to be in this panel with these two great women, Charisse and Amy, who have worked really a long time with both of them. And we have lots of stories, and I'm able to share some of those stories afterwards that we can tell. But I've been in Cedar Park for just right at 2 years now. And what we have done the last 2 years is really lay the groundwork for Cedar Park to be the next hub of employment for the MSA. And it's not going to be, it's going to be more of the white collar technology jobs that will be coming to Cedar Park, and that's really what we're focused on. We probably only respond to 30% of the proposals that we're asked to respond to, because we're pretty particular in the type of projects that we want in Cedar Park. So we're pretty selective in the projects we go after. But probably two of the projects that we're proud of the last year was MSB Consulting coming out of North Austin and locating 300 jobs into Cedar Park. It's a great company, moving folks into Cedar Park, and then they've also been able to partner with the Crossover, which is a new multi-sports development in Cedar Park, and so they're already they're already involved in the community, which is great. That's really one of the things we look for, is somebody who's going to be a strong community partner. Beyond capital investments and jobs, we want them to be part of the community, and so we're excited about that. But also, probably the one we're really proud of, and it's one that is unique in my career, is it's not very often that you get to work with a Texas-born, a Texas-raised, and a Texas-legend company. And we were able to do that with James Avery. And James Avery put their second headquarters in Cedar Park after looking at many of the communities in Central Texas. This is going to be their home of their marketing, of their digital presence, their financial area. This is where it's going to be for James Avery, and so we're excited to have James Avery. They're almost out of their construction out there in Scottsdale Crossing off of 183. So we're thrilled with that, being in Cedar Park. But we're really posed to be the employment hub for the MSA. Much like I was at 8 years in Round Rock, it took us, you kind of have to set the stage for where you want to be. And we've set that stage, and then we had to deal with that little thing called COVID. And now we're ready to get over that and really knock some doors down. So we're excited about the future.
Ben, I think everybody's ready to be done with COVID, not just Cedar Park. So we're all in it to be done with it. Finally, Charisse Bodisch, and I'm going with you last because I worked with you, and you've had a little bit of an active year. So I'm going to let you take it from here.
I don't know. So first, like Ben, I am just so honored to be with two of my most favorite people in the world, Amy and Ben. We do have a lot of fun. We've done this for a long time. And, they are two of the most aggressive and most professional in the industry. And, it's just exciting to see what they're doing in our region, that we are so blessed to have them here and not in a competing region. So I actually represent Opportunity Austin, and we work with 5 counties, about 20 cities. So we get to watch some of these deals happening in all of these communities. Let's see, biggest deal this year. Oh man, I don't know. Maybe Tesla. I don't know. I mean, seriously, it is a game changer. It's the one that everybody's talking about. And it's not just a game changer for, Travis County, Del Valley, but for our entire region. I mean, we are seeing all kinds of activity, and it has really put our region on the map when it comes to, advanced technologies, when it comes to manufacturing, industrial development, you name it. I see some of the names in the group. Some of them know what I'm talking about because they're on some of those front lines as well, and they're seeing that level of activity. So in case you did not hear, Tesla's building a big plant, a Giga Texas factory. They're on the first phase, and it's located on Highway 130, just north of 71. You can't miss it. It is astounding what they have done in a short amount of time. And they are moving quick, which is good for us. Couldn't come at a better time. We've got about 80,000 people unemployed, and a lot of those people may have opportunities to go work at this plant. And so, it is a game changer as far as building a new industry. Actually, it's not even a new industry cluster, but it's expanding on an industry cluster that we wanted to see grow. But it's all the other things also. When you look at what goes into that vehicle, it's not just an automotive company. I mean, they've got solar panels on the car, they use batteries, a lot of semiconductor parts. I don't know, somebody said it's over 400 electronic semiconductor chips, but I'm sure it's probably even more than that. Very smart type of vehicles. So we're excited, and I'd say that's the biggest deal, but not to overshadow, there have been a ton of deals happening this year. In spite of COVID, we internally, we are shooting to try to have our best year ever. Right now, astoundingly, OA Opportunity Austin was formed in 2004. We are sitting at our second best year ever in our entire history for jobs announced. And keeping in mind, we've had some big jobs announced in the past. I mean, gosh, we had Apple, we had Facebook, we've had big announcements in the past. So that's significant. Right now, we're about 4,500 jobs shy of being the best year ever. But I know our team, they're sitting there looking at it going, hey, we got 2 months. We're going to pull a rabbit out of the hat. And this is going to be an amazing story and something positive that the whole region can look at. And it's because we've got all this other activity happening, you know, in Pflugerville and Cedar Park and all the other cities in our region.
Well, good. Thank you, Charisse. And we want to encourage everybody to use the Q&A. So if you have questions for this panel, we want to make sure that you know to use those, and we'll sprinkle those in or hit them at the end. But you all kind of mentioned the fact that you work together. And if you were on here at the very beginning, Charisse was making sure Amy got an email that was sent. And I know in conversations, they're all working together. So talk to me a little bit about, or talk to our group a little bit about the importance of working together as a region and how it helps your individual cities grow and expand. And, you know, Amy, you talked about the highway coming through, and I know that was part of this expansion and this project that everybody's working on together. So who wants to kick it off? It could be Amy, Ben, Charisse, or I'll call a name.
Hey, I'll jump in real quick. First of all, I think, you know, when you stop and think about what we do, we work with companies, right? We work with business, and they're continually looking to get outside the box, and they go outside the region all the time, and they don't have boundaries, right? And when we look at our own cities individually, there's only so much we can do. But, you know, business knows no boundaries, and us not having boundaries when it comes to working regionally is really key, because it really does play back into what business is looking for. And I think the other thing is that, you know, businesses rely on certain types of assets, but those assets aren't necessarily in our backyard. They're regional assets, and we all bring something to the table. And not every company is going to find the right niche in a Austin or a Cedar Park or a Pflugerville. They're looking for different things. And so having our work done as a region really pulls together all the resources we have. We put everything on the table, and we don't leave anything on the table when we work collaborative like that. So it really is also a significant force for the companies that are coming in to see us do that. It's like, yeah, but don't you guys compete? Well, yeah, we do compete. We compete for projects all the time, but we work together to bring the leads in so that we all have a chance to do that. So I think Opportunity Austin has laid such great groundwork and provided us that canvas that we wouldn't have had otherwise. And they set the table for us. We come there all the time and work together, almost like family in a way, in order to recruit projects.
Yeah, this regionalism is one of my two soapbox issues that I like to get on. And I guess to Amy's point, I guess I'm the crazy uncle in this family. But regionalism is hugely important. Charisse and I both spent time up in the Metroplex, up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and we're part of communities and a region that did not play well in the same sandbox at times. And that really becomes a distraction, because you're more worried in Cedar Park, could be more worried about Georgetown or Leander or Round Rock or, you know, Austin, trying to take a company out of Cedar Park and move it across the city limit just so they can have a win for the year. And that doesn't happen in our region. And that's hugely important, that we don't have to worry about losing companies out the back door to our neighboring communities. We know that companies are going to move around, and that just happens. But if one of the communities is contacted by a company, that new community reaches out to the existing community and lets them know, hey, Company A in Pflugerville has reached out to Cedar Park. We want to let you know we need to take the call, but before we talk to them, we want you to know that they have reached out. And that would give Amy, you know, the first opportunity, hey, try to retain them in Pflugerville, because for a region, a lot of times it doesn't do anything to grow a region if the company's just moving from, you know, one site to the next site, you know, just moving across the door, try to get a tax, you know, incentive every 6 years. So that's hugely important to us. And And Amy's point, it really does play well when we're recruiting out of state, that companies can come in and they can go from community to community and know that we all get along. Because really, at the end of the day, not one community is going to win off of a project. As Charisse just talked about Tesla, those employees are going to live all around the MSA. They're going to spend their money at stores and restaurants all over the MSA, and they're going to shop everywhere. I mean, it's going to be a win for everybody. And so, you know, it really is, and that's hard for a lot of elected officials to understand, that it's okay if we come in second on a project and it lands 3 miles outside of our city limits, because we're still going to benefit from that. And so regionalism is important. It's a hard issue for many people to understand. It's actually harder to do, because there really has to be a lot of trust involved. And I think that's one of the things, to Amy's point, Opportunity Austin did a great job laying that groundwork many, many years ago, because it really takes trust. And I do think there's a lot of trust amongst the economic development professionals in the region now.
And I'll close it up with just a quick statement, because they've really said everything that needs to be said. But, you know, when I think about the Austin region, the word that comes to me is collaboration. And if you think about our culture throughout our region, that's really what we're about. You know, people are very collaborative. They want to help each other. And I've used this before, but my favorite quote of all times was during South by Southwest. There was a gaming CEO, and his statement, somebody asked him, hey, what do you think about Austin? And he said, you know, it's like going to the Keebler Elf factory to make fudge cookies, and somebody comes up and says, hey, how about some sprinkles on that? It's, you know, people will take things, they want to enhance it, they want to help each other, and our communities are that same way. We bring prospects in, and sometimes they'll narrow down, and Ben's been in these meetings where they'll narrow down to one city, and the adjacent cities will come in, meet with that company, and support that other city. And it's so foreign to them. I mean, they get a little nervous, like, oh, we're gonna have all these people in here. And then you do the meeting, they go, wow, that was so refreshing. I didn't know communities could work that well together. So, you know, it says a lot for our region and our culture and the people that are here.
Good. So we actually have a few questions that kind of tie into the next question that we have planned. So they're around talent, and they're around companies that are looking to come into the area. You've all brought companies in that are going to create jobs for Central Texas. A lot of our technology companies are hiring right now because technology is answering a need that a lot of companies have, or a lot of people have, not just companies. So let's talk about the influx from the coast first, and what you're seeing and what you're hearing, because usually it's mainly out of the West Coast, but there's a mass exodus out of New York. And I'm going to put my dog decided she needs to drink water, and she is a camel. So I'm going to put myself on mute, and Charisse, if you want to go ahead and get this one started.
Yeah, and I was looking at the chat room as well, because it looks like the conversation is about the talent market and pre-COVID, in COVID, what do we think after COVID, kind of where that question is going. So pre-COVID, very tight talent market, absolutely on IT. End of the day, you're not going to find an IT market or a tech market that doesn't have tight talent. But here's the thing. So then COVID comes, and it's kind of interesting because companies are now, they've got remote employees, and we're the benefactor of that, because we're seeing people moving in with skills, and they can choose where they want to live. So some of these companies are almost like, we're fine, you can live where you want to live, we're going to let you stay remote. So we're actually going to be the benefactor of talent that's moving in because of remote work. At some point though, you know, are those remote workers then going to go to an office? And if they do, chances are they're going to still stay here in our region. COVID, a whole nother situation. Pre-COVID, our biggest unemployment numbers were with unskilled workers. And I saw the chat room, there are a lot of efforts being made, so on the IT side, you've got all kinds of certificates, you've got all kinds of the colleges and universities. We've got about 14 in our region alone, about 180,000 students in our region. And so there is a lot of that. We're trying to get people those skills. There's a lot of upskilling. There's a lot of entities that are working, nonprofits, to upskill individuals, get into other positions. And so you have that coupled with a lot of high schools. I don't know, I'm probably the oldest person in the group, but I remember every school had VOTEC. Like you didn't go to school and not have VOTEC. And guess what? VOTEC is back in vogue. You've got a lot of these high schools that are going with certain skills because they translate into manufacturing. When we were working with Tesla, Del Valley ISD actually has an amazing CTE program that they tap with employers. And guess what? They show me the list of employers. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, you're like this unknown secret, because there are so many employers that could probably tap into those students that are getting trained, they're doing internships, and the companies that are tapping into these high schools early are getting good quality employees and being able to groom them along the way. So there's a lot of those efforts. COVID hits, and guess what? We've got a whole nother dynamic. And, the writing's on the wall, unfortunately, for a lot of companies. I haven't gone out a lot, but I do get out, and I wanted to go shopping. So I go over to our shopping center, and it was actually kind of stunning because half of it is boarded up and closed. You're seeing big names in retail shutting. Guess what? There were people attached to those jobs. And some of those companies actually employ a lot of employees. And those are employees that can be reskilled to go into a lot of the jobs that we're now recruiting, especially, whether it's a Tesla or manufacturing or Amy with Amazon. There are a lot of jobs out there, and a lot of these companies are having, the reason they come here is because they can start where they can get entry-level workers, but they can also get PhDs. We're very unique in that because you have a lot of manufacturing hotspots that they can get entry level all day long, but they're kind of short on that IT skilled set. Or you can go to tech places, they got all the tech, but they really don't have that other worker that can go in and can be trained and can take those positions and move upward. So, we are seeing the continuation of people moving in. That hasn't slowed. All you have to do is look at the housing market. Hopefully we're getting some jobs and getting some people reskilled that are going to be displaced, and some of them permanently, that maybe we're working in retail or restaurants or service industries, that those industries are having to rethink how they're going to come back and when do they come back, and do they come back at all. I know that Ben and Amy, they've got other dynamics in their communities as well with workforce and trying to train up talent. So
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Charisse said. And Cedar Park, the demographics out here, 50% of the population here has a bachelor's degree or higher, which is an astonishing number when you look at cities in that demographic mark. I started off in Greenville, Texas, and the number there was 16% when I was there. So going from 16 to 50% is just a remarkable change of the type of companies that you work with. And we do see that, companies during COVID closed down and people started working from home, but at some point, companies, what's important to companies is that they have culture, and they're going to need to bring people back into the office. We see the suburban office product as being a real winner after COVID, because they're going to put offices in these communities where their employees live. And so a lot of these, headquarters or regional headquarters or high-tech folks, that they're living in North Austin, Cedar Park, Liberty Hill, Leander area, this is going to be a good central location for them to put down some roots. So we're seeing that quite a bit. I also want to say we work really well. I see Kara on here. We work very well at Texas Workforce, And in fact, we did 2 skills development funds for 2 companies in Cedar Park this past year with NOV and with Voltbox. And that is, bringing the skill levels of those 2 companies up and being able to train those those employees and progress their careers. And so we're very, that's kind of what we focus on, is helping our local employers, grow the skill levels of their employees. And Kara and her team and everybody at Texas Workforce, they've been a tremendous asset for us in that process.
And Amy, what are you seeing in Pflugerville?
Well, first of all, we've really jumped to the plate and tried to assist some of our micro businesses very early on. We developed the Pfluger Fund, and then more recently we developed Pflugerville Cares funding grants for businesses in Pflugerville to really survive. And the focus was on retaining their employment when we did that. Collectively, probably 1.3 million was distributed as a part of that fund. But what we found was, with a lot of the applicants, there were some particularly micro businesses that lacked some training on really how to run a business, certain basics that would be helpful to them. So we're working on trying to help with that, so that not only do we have continuity with our employment, but we're also trying to skill up the micro businesses that we have. Our focus has also been with workforce training. We've done a lot of work with grants with the state, Texas Workforce Commission, in order to reskill and upskill. We hear that all day long, but it's true. And I think, like Charisse is talking about, the fact that, I see it as an opportunity in a lot of ways for these people to have careers that are actually going to provide them better income and better benefit than they ever had before. We just have to get them there. We have to get them trained. We have to provide the support in order to get there, but they're out there. And so some of the programs that are being rolled out by the Workforce Solutions Capital Area, of course, we're very, very vested there. One of our employees is there representing veterans, and we're working hard on trying to help them launch their programs and actively get there. But in addition to that, we've actually reached out to our local library, which has been significant in our rehabilitation of some of these folks with free training programs that are available through just having a library card. And even if it's just an employee working for a business in Pflugerville, they're allowed to utilize some of the training that we have available to them. And the PCDC, our organization, is helping to fund. And just today, we had a brainstorm session with them on how we can expand our reach into the community to try to get them connected with career development opportunity and learn how they can upskill. But I see it still as a source of employment for some of the growth that we're seeing all throughout the region, for us to be able to give them that opportunity to maybe step up and do something that, from a financial standpoint, that they never could do before, and to have the support to do it through some of the companies that we're seeing coming in. I think it's truly remarkable. Amazon is a good example of that. Minimum wage of $15 an hour, full benefits, it's a good starting ground. It's a good training ground, and it can lead to other opportunities as they mature and get better at what they do. So I think that, it is unfortunate, but some, like Charisse is saying, they're just not coming back. We got to figure out how they come back stronger and how they come back better. And that's where our focus is in Pflugerville.
So we've got
Can
a question.
I add one last thing?
Absolutely.
So on a personal note, one of the other things, and always looking for that silver lining, because, you can get overwhelmed by COVID and how we've all been, our lives have changed so much. But one of the other things that has really helped in a way is that, Workforce Solutions, the colleges, the universities, the online courses, while they may have been there before, it's now a more robust curriculum. And so, for instance, our son, he was in customer service. He was a manager at a customer service center, and it was actually one of the first to fall when COVID hit. And so he started to look at how do I pivot, and he's actually taking software IT classes to get a certificate, not necessarily the whole, gonna go get the whole degree, but enough that, can plug into one of those companies or into one of these opportunities as they open up. And that's kind of going back to some of that IT question at the beginning.
Well, and I think that that's a great thing. So we know ACC, so Austin Community College, Galvanize has some great programmings, Texas Workforce Solutions, or Texas Workforce Commission, and then Workforce Solutions Capital Area. I always tie those two in together. But they all have great programming and great opportunities to go and get some training. So we'll include that information in the wrap-up email on those organizations and how you can get training through them if you want to send that out to your network. But we've got this kind of, David Ruth has a question, but it also ties into our next question, which is projects that help displaced workers. And Amy, you were leading into it, and Charisse, you brought it up, and Ben, you as well, in the importance of these workers who their prior job prior to COVID is likely not going to come back. But then it also ties into the affordable housing aspect. And I know from having worked at the chamber and worked closely with Charisse and the economic development team over there, affordability is always a question that's asked by companies. So how do you approach that we've got all these workers who we can skill, we have the resources to skill, but that affordability issue comes into play as well, especially, this is a big topic locally, but it's also a topic nationally. So Ben, do you want to lead this one off?
That's a loaded question. Because, the affordability is a big issue, and we've seen the median household price index go up quite a bit in Cedar Park, and I think all in Williamson County. And I know it's always a point in Austin when they're recruiting Austin. And what we were getting calls on was, affordability, and Charisse may be able to answer this better than I can, but affordability is such an issue. We hear about this Prop A being voted on that's going to increase the taxes for people living in Austin. How does that match with the affordability question, but with the rising of taxes there? And so that's a question that we get asked quite a bit, and we kind of stay out of that because obviously we're not in the Prop A that was voted on in Austin last week. So there's the affordability question for Cedar Park has become, it's going to be a high income, it's going to be a high end suburban community. And so, there's a lot of housing project that's going on around us, Liberty Hill and Leander and Round Rock. And so when we do our workforce maps, we're, as we talked about regionalism earlier, we draw a big circle, because not one community you can't just house all your employees in one community. So we draw a pretty big circle. And when you do that, you get outside of the urban center and you get into these other surrounding communities, there are affordable, you can buy houses that are affordable. You just may not be living in the center of Austin. So that's kind of how we've tackled that approach.
Well, Amy, and I know a lot of people who work in the central part of Austin are moving to Pflugerville because of the affordability aspect of that. Are you starting to see that trend continue, or is affordability becoming a concern in Pflugerville?
Well, first I'm going to back that totally up. And I'm just going to say that one of the things that communities need to be able to do in order to secure new projects and keep the growth going is to make sure that they don't overprice their real estate, overprice their housing. One of the things, Charisse, going back in the day, when we first started making our trips to New York and to California, it was all about the affordability of Texas, the affordability of Austin, and comparative with our cost of living with their cost of living. And as we see that begin to creep, it obviously creeps into our you know, our ability to really show distinction of our area with other areas. Now, it's not the only thing that's important, but it is important. And so keeping an eye on affordability, especially for housing, I think is very key for us. It's something that we have to tackle one way or the other, regionally or otherwise. We have seen a strong commitment out of Austin to Pflugerville as a result of several reasons. It's not just affordability, but coming to Pflugerville and being able to buy a home or find an affordable apartment has been a real drawing point for people. But like everybody else in the region, we're starting to see some creep. So I would say it's just something that we've all got to keep an eye on, because it can really impact our recruitment ability and the growth of our region. And when we look at diversity, equity, equality, you know, it's an important factor that we look at our communities and we really provide opportunity for everybody. And, you know, I always look at communities as full circle, you know, beginning to end, and trying to have opportunity and product there for everyone. And we have done a pretty good job of that. We have the highest, we're the most diverse city in the region, and we continue to see growth in those areas. So we're trying to really hit it head on. But again, you've got to keep your eye on that, because that's an important piece of the equation.
Good, thank you. And Charisse, I know for the Chamber, affordability has been on the docket of discussions for everything. I moved here in 2009,
Always.
the discussion.
Always. So lots of different things, like where to start. So I know the question was directly related to affordable housing, so I'll kind of start there. So one of the things is obviously housing stock. You know, that's the thing, is that some of it's market driven. We do see through the region, you know, construction continued throughout COVID. I think the thing is, everybody thought, okay, we're going to keep building and then we're going to have this great housing stock. But guess what? People were moving here. Like, I think that's the thing that was unexpected, was how many people are moving during COVID. And, you know, I mean, I probably had like 10 meetings today. People, different meetings, have been here less than 6 months, that they've actually moved here during COVID. And it's like, wow, that's kind of amazing. And some of them that are looking to move, like you mentioned earlier, you've got companies that are exiting. We are still cost competitive when you look at our overall cost of living, but you know, those individuals are looking for housing stock as well. So one of it is, you know, housing stock, making sure that the region continues to build. Austin absolutely needs to add housing stock, and that's been a big, huge conversation and a big part of the puzzle. I will say that when we were working with Tesla, that was a big part of the conversation. A lot of those tracks, a lot of people don't realize how much housing is actually planned along the 130 corridor. And this has certainly made a lot of those look at what type of apartments or what type of housing stock, because that's going to be important. Tesla likes to have employees that are close. They will actually run shuttles. They do in their other locations. We're assuming they'll do that here too, where shuttles will shuttle to those developments and bring people to the plant. So there is conversation about what does that housing look like and at what price points in that area. You know, the City of Austin, some of you may have heard, they've got a new economic development corporation that they're standing up. A lot of people have called our office like, what does that mean? What does that mean? And it's not in competition. We actually worked with them when they were talking about what they're going to do with that particular department. That department is all those gaps that we really need them to focus on. And some of that is affordable housing. It's, you know, city-owned tracts, and how do they convert that to help individuals get into housing. Some of it deals with homelessness. You know, they've got a lot of initiatives that are directed toward musicians and artists and people like that. So there is a lot of work that's being done on how do you build more affordable housing. Developers in Austin, and I don't know, I see some people that may have, Alicia may have a better take on this than I do, but I think there's a requirement that you have to do so many units, or you contribute to a fund that then is used to go build those affordable units. So there is work. It is something that everybody looks at. I said at the beginning, one of the things that we work on is trying to build these employment centers as well throughout the region. So having employment centers in Amy's community and Ben's community and in San Marcos and in Bastrop and Elgin and Manor, where people can live closer and have those jobs that they want to go to, that also is going to help, because then you diversify the whole economy. And it's not that that pressure is on, oh, I got to live in the core of downtown or right there on the periphery. So there's a lot of efforts. It's not overnight, and it's not going to happen overnight. I think people are building as quickly as they can, especially in the surrounding communities. We haven't checked lately. We actually did a poll a couple of years ago on how many units were being planned in each community to see what would be coming online. So not a complete answer, but definitely at the forefront of a lot of work with a lot of entities.
And Amber, I think what, tackling on what Amy and Charisse said, I think every community, you just kind of have to own what your community identity is. And it's, Austin's own theirs, Cedar Park's own theirs, Pflugerville's own theirs, and you just need to own it and work with who you are. And it's important to know who you are so that you can work with it. Because like Cedar Park is landlocked. Like we don't have 500 acres for housing developments. We just don't have that anymore. So it's important for us to recognize that and know that what we have left, we need to use it very wisely.
Well, all of your areas have grown significantly since I moved here, but let's move on to 2021, because this year blessedly is almost over. And I don't think anybody's going to be more excited than everybody sitting here on this webinar today to see it done. But one of the big things I've noticed living downtown is nobody's going into the office, and it might be a while before people do. So as you're looking at deals and you're looking at things that you're working on, are you seeing concerns about office space? Because it's always been a concern in the past, is there enough? And now I think there might be more than what we had. What are you all hearing?
I guess I'll tackle that, seeing as I work with a lot of office projects. So it's interesting. I get harassed all the time because pre-COVID, we were on a shortage of office space. And so we were hammering everybody, hey, we need some office space. So now they're going, okay, well, you asked, and I now have it. So here's the thing though, is that there's actually a story that was just done. It came into my email this morning, that actually a third of Austin workers are back in their offices. So, we're following, I think Houston and Dallas, Fort Worth actually have the highest percentage of workers in their office, followed by Houston, followed by Austin. But Texas as a whole has worked really hard to get people back into an office space. Companies are trying to figure it out. And obviously there's mandates, and there's certain companies that can go to the office, certain companies that can't, depending on what stage you're in. So right now there's people that can't get into their offices until we move to a different stage, especially in the city of Austin. But each community has, what their parameters are for being able to do that. The other conversation that we've got is workforce and talent, and how is that playing? That at the beginning or a couple months ago, you had a lot of companies that were like, yeah, we're going to keep our employees working forever remote, or they're going to work for years remote. And what happens with that? But here's the thing is that I've actually been talking to mental health experts, not for me, Ben. I know you're like going, you should have a long time ago, right? So I've been talking to them about what's the effect of long-term remote work for a lot of these workers. And it is challenging. Companies are, while there was this high productivity in the beginning, everybody's working. The thing is, you're working because you got nothing else to do. You can't leave the house, so you're working and working. You're starting to face burnout. You've got isolation. You're seeing divorce rates increase. You're seeing other mental health issues. They're already seeing it with children. So there's another crisis that could be out there looming, depending on what that looks like in the future, because most people want to be around other people. And does that, certainly I think everybody will say that the future of the office is probably going to be different, probably going to be more flexibility. You may not be going in every day like you did pre-COVID, but you may be going in a couple days because you know what? You want to be around your people, but you also need it for creativity. It's kind of hard to build creativity. I mean, I'm looking at this Zoom board and I mean, the only people showing are us, right? So you get Zoom fatigue. You're like, yeah, I'm doing other stuff at the same time. I'm maybe doing emails or whatever. And that's the thing is that there's this disengaging that's starting to happen in companies, and their HR people are starting to recognize that there is importance to having that in-person culture. So I do think you're going to start seeing when people can figure out how to do that safely and bring people back into their offices safely, you're going to see them start doing their test trials like, okay, let's try this group and let's try this group. And I think you will see some of that building back up. So that's my 2021 prediction. I think it's going to be, everybody's waiting to see what happens with the vaccine. I mean, big announcement yesterday. So we'll see what happens with that. And if that changes how people are looking at how they're going to work together. I know that was pretty long-winded, but a lot of things on affecting the office market. Plus we actually saw this month the biggest uptick since COVID hit as far as office requests. And so we do have companies that are like, okay, we're figuring it out and we do want office space and we're going to do it. So we'll see what the next year brings.
Good. Ben, do you have a thought?
Yeah. So as I said earlier, I think really to your point, there are a lot of vacancies, or could be a lot of vacancies in downtown, and I think there's many reasons for that. But I do think the suburban market could come out as the winner. As I read the different real estate firms as they put out different reports, that's kind of what everybody's reporting. We were able to announce during COVID 400,000 square feet of Class A office to be built in Cedar Park. The first 100,000 square feet is all spec. I mean, that just kind of shows what the mentality is of what's going to be going on in Cedar Park in the future. I mean, I don't know of any other spec Class A office space there is being built right now or being announced during COVID. So we do feel that way. Now, it's going to, the buildings are going to look differently. I mean, they may be 2 or 3 stories. And you may go back to the old, grand staircases in the lobbies going up. People may not want to be in elevators, and it's going to be different. But a lot of outdoor, access to outdoors and trail systems and things like that. I know Amy has, in Pflugerville as well, and I think that's going to be important. And I guess my prediction for 2021 is that Charisse and Opportunity Austin will shatter the record they set in 2020.
Well, that's not fair. That was my prediction. I mean, seriously, Ben.
Okay, I predict Amy Madison will shatter her Amazon project in 2021.
Well, of course I am, but I mean, I was going to give the prediction about Charisse. So, I mean, what can I say? I think 2021 is going to be is going to be a year for us to reshape, remold, rethink, and come together and do some new and exciting things. I really am looking forward to it. And as we have grown throughout this whole ordeal with COVID, with shifting and pivoting and doing new things different ways in order to accomplish maybe sometimes endpoints that were achievable prior with less effort, but in the end, we got it done anyway. Utilizing technology to get there is going to be the way that we will come out of this. We already are, and we're learning to live with it. I mean, I think when you think back what happened in March and April and how you actually felt when you began remote work and how isolating that was and how frightening it was for so many people that didn't understand what was going on. And the more that we've learned about the disease, the more we've been able to cope with it, the more we've been able to kind of keep it in check for the most part in order to continue to have an economy that's thriving like it is today. So getting COVID under control in 2021, I'm going to predict we will do that one way or the other, either through immunization or improved techniques that may be tech-based. We're working with some companies right now that are looking at some R&D that could provide incredible protection in office environment, on hard surface and more, air circulation, all the, the improvements we're seeing there. All of that leads to being back in an office again. But I do believe that it will be a blended office. I think we will still see people doing remote. I think it's healthy on some types of projects. I don't know about y'all, but sometimes getting up early and being able to work in your jams and get that project done really, really works for you. But then getting back in the office again to get the energy for like the creative side of things, as Charisse mentioned, is also important. So I think 21 is going to be a really blockbuster year for OA and maybe for Cedar Park too.
Well, we want to see a blockbuster year for everybody. The last question, and something happened last Tuesday and then something happened on Saturday. So politics always plays a part in the work that you do, whether it's trying to get incentives passed, whether it's working with different municipalities, working with the local government, the county government, or the state government, and then, probably not as much of an impact on the federal level. But how do the elections and how do the changes in city council members and county judges and state elected officials, how much of an impact does that have on the work that you do every day?
Well, I'm just going to jump in and say it's over. It's over, kind of, almost over. Is it almost over? I think the uncertainty of an election year is always difficult. Looking at a local level is different than looking at the national level, of course. But I think getting some of the politics out of the way and moving on to just some certainty is always going to be good. It's always, everybody takes a deep breath after it's over. Locally in our election, we've had we have two new council members coming on, but really, honestly, we have such a really strong community from a leadership standpoint that I don't see that impacting at all. In fact, if anything, it's going to be as good, if not more support for what we do in economic development. So that's a plus in our community.
Good.
I would say, I think even though everybody focuses on the federal elections, that it really for us is more local and making sure that we have council members that we work with, mayors and council members that are actually pro economic development. And that doesn't mean pro incentives or pro whatever. That just means like they understand the process and are supportive of you and supportive of the process to get the right companies for your community there. And I think that's important. I've said this many times where, I wish I didn't know who was red and who was blue on council, because at the end of the day, we just want to do what's best for Cedar Park. And a lot of those national issues don't come into play in City Hall. They just don't come into play in City Hall. So, we work with whoever's going to be elected. And so we just really want that mindset of somebody who understands the process and is pro-business, pro-growth, pro-job training, everything we're trying to do to grow the tax base of our communities. And that's really what we're trying to do at the end of the day, is grow the tax base of our communities and create good jobs for our citizens. So Even though everybody focuses on the federal, it's Tip O'Neill said, you know, when he was Speaker of the House, all politics is local, you know, and that's important. You know, when he and Ronald Reagan would go out and have, you know, scotch together, you know, that's the kind of environment that we thrive in, is in that, where everybody can work together.
Good. Charisse, final word.
Okay, so I know there's a couple questions. So David, I agree that people are very focused and productive than at the office, but what we're hearing is that a hybrid would actually be more rounded in some cases. That I get that even from my team, that they're like, yeah, I really love being able to be working from home 2 or 3 days a week. I can get really focused, I can get my stuff done, but I want to be around other people the other couple of days, especially when we're trying to do collaborative projects or we've got creative things that we're trying to create. That's just more difficult doing it remote. So I think you may see some of that hybrid, but absolutely. I mean, yeah, I get a lot done here because I don't have all the interruptions. But then I've got also a very good infrastructure at home. There's a lot of single individuals that don't have that infrastructure, and you know they're starting to suffer a little bit on that end. On the election side, Diane, definitely would love to connect with you a little bit more directly because that's a long answer to that question. The city of Austin, specifically, they've got a couple seats that are in runoffs, so we'll see how that's going to go. Probably see some money spent in those runoffs for sure. It's in 2 districts. City of Austin, for those of you that don't live in the city of Austin, it's single member districts. So 2 districts, they will go head to head, and we'll see what that turnout looks like. There was 1 seat that changed. Does it affect homelessness? You know, I don't know that you're going to see the city council that's seated right now retract what they've already got in place. There are some other initiatives, though, that have been taking place behind the scenes that you'll probably see more of that coming out in the future to try to address the homeless situation in Austin. There was a petition. The petition was not validated. So to have a new petition, I don't know if they can get it done by May because they would have to have it ready by February and certified. So, you know, lots of questions on that end, Diane, that happy to connect with you individually on that. Local, yeah, you're absolutely right. We deal with, like I said, 20 cities. Each one is a little different. Some are more aggressive, more business friendly. Others are a little bit more reserved in how they approach their economic development. So for us, it's always just understanding what that local makeup is. There was changes throughout our region. So we'll see how that happens because we deal with not just city councils, but we deal with county commissioners and we deal with school boards. So we're always looking at how that makeup may affect them looking at a project or that job creation model.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, I always learn something when I talk to the 3 of you, and I learned a lot more today, and I feel like I know a lot of this information already, but then you guys throw stuff out there that I had no idea we were working on. So good job to all 3 of you and the work that you are doing. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week. Thank you so much.